commie tube. Can you say commie tube? Crap. They're going to kick me for saying that. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into this next article, and we're going to talk a little bit about the big, beautiful bill, but more so, I mean, that thing's been talked about up and down, left and right, but the pushback we're seeing, there's kind of lines being drawn, so to speak, right? Let's go to Politico here. White House allies, quote, disappointed at Musk's opposition to the mega bill. Musk posted on X on May 29th that the bill would not, quote, change tax incentives for oil and gas, just EV and solar, and Tesla Energy has also come out against the bill. The legislation terminates multiple tax credits that Tesla, one of the largest electric vehicle manufacturers in America, I think they are the largest, currently qualifies for: a $7,500 federal tax credit for new EVs, the $4,000 credit for used EVs, and a $1,000 credit for level 2 charger installation. The bill would also impose a $250 yearly federal registration fee for EV owners only. Tesla's $11.4 billion in regulatory credits would expire at the end of 2025. Those credits contributed to Tesla's profitability in the first quarter of this year. Now, I've always been pretty against the tax credits, right? Like the idea that somebody in America should be given a credit to buy a product comparable to what another person would buy and not receive that credit. In other words, if I go out and buy, like, I'm a big car guy. I like fast cars. I like big V8s, superchargers, turbocharged, all that stuff. I love old cars. And if I go out and buy a, like, say, like a Corvette, for example, I'm paying a gas guzzler tax on top of that. So if you go out and there's all sorts of luxury tax because of the cost of the car and all that stuff. If you go out and buy a Tesla or, a Lucid or, one of the Prius or whatever, you're getting $7,500 back. That is the government giving money to a certain sect of people buying something comparable to what others are buying. To me, that is as much as I dislike it, a 14th Amendment violation. I dislike the 14th Amendment, not that I dislike equal protections, but to me, that's absolutely absurd. But Elon Musk, I can understand where he's coming from on that. I don't agree with it though, but generally I agree with Musk in this battle here. Though Musk's latest tweets came as a surprise, the broader scorched earth exit was seen by many Trump advisors and allies as an inevitability, said a second person familiar with the situation. The only question was how quickly it happened and what would trigger the falling out. Quote, "These days were always coming," said that second person. "His departure is going as well as can be hoped." Okay. Guys, Elon Musk was always leaving after 130 days. He had to. It is the law. We all heard President Trump in the Oval Office with Elon Musk standing right next to him, I think it was last week, saying that he's still going to be an advisor to me. He's still going to be very much here and very much active. He just can't have that special government role. Special government employee. He can't have that official title because he hasn't gone through the process that's outlined in the Constitution. And so therefore, they're making a big story out of this. So let's jump over to Axios, another story here. 4 reasons why Musk attacked Trump's big, beautiful bill. And let's just cut through all the crap and get to the reasons that Axios wants us to believe that this is why Elon is doing what he's doing. Number 1, the legislation cuts the EV tax credit that helps car maker like Musk's Teslas. As of late April, his company had spent at least $240,000 lobbying on behalf of the credit and other company matters. Behind the scenes, sources say Musk also advocated for the measure in the legislation, but to no avail. I mean, it's been long enough. It is really stupid. I understand Musk's point here and that, it really incentivizes people to buy Teslas and electric vehicles. I don't think we have the infrastructure for it, first and foremost. I happen to love Teslas. I think Teslas are phenomenal cars. I don't know if I would personally own one, but a $7,500 tax credit is not factoring into my decision of whether or not I need to buy a Tesla. Anyways, Number 2, Musk was working at the White House as what's called a special government employee and had discussed trying to stay in that role beyond the 130-day time limit set by statute for the unpaid advisory position. But ultimately, White House officials said he couldn't keep serving in that capacity. That's been the plan all along. So far, this is just a rehash of Politico. Number 3, Musk also wanted the FAA, the Federal Aviation, to use Starlink's satellite system for national air traffic control, according to the sources, but the administration balked at it because of the appearance of a conflict of interest and for technological reasons. Quote, you can't have air traffic control, just run off satellites, the second source said. Okay, this one's interesting. I do think, and I've talked about this on the shows and stuff, that Starlink is an excellent backup, and some people can use it as a primary, no question. I'm not saying like don't consider it as a primary, but it's a good backup if the internet ever goes down. In fact, I keep procrastinating on buying my own and getting the little mini one that you can take and travel with and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know if using Starlink, I have no experience with it, but typically satellites are interrupted by weather patterns, cloud cover. There's other things that factor into the viability of the Starlink's signal. So I don't know, the ins and outs, the technicalities of whether or not it'd be a viable option for the FAA to use for air traffic control. But I mean, Musk makes a good point, and the pushback on it is a good point as well. It would be a conflict of interest, perhaps, if he was serving in that role. Now, maybe he's out of that role. Maybe we see a contract for Starlink. I mean, Musk is one of, if not the biggest government defense contractor out there. So we'll see. And number 4, the final straw for Musk appeared to come Saturday night when Trump abruptly announced that he was withdrawing the nomination of Jared Isaacman, a Musk ally, to be the NASA administrator. And, I don't know, man. It says after Isaacman's nomination was dropped, word quickly spread in the White House that Sergio Gore, the director of the Office of Presidential Personnel, who had clashed with Musk, was behind that decision. This was Sergio's out of the door FU to Musk, said one White House official. But 2 administration insiders said that wasn't the case. Senators complained about Isaacman for being a Democratic donor, the insider said, and the White House wanted a Republican loyalist. So again, this is just such a stupid story. I don't know why this is running the way it is, but let's look real quick, because Elon Musk tweeted this out yesterday. In November next year, we fire all politicians who betrayed the American people. And this was in response to Matt Van Swole, who said the GOP are out there. The GOP out there are spending millions on luxury hotels in Ukraine, not voting on any Doge cuts, spending 60% of their time on vacation, and not codifying executive orders. Is this the major reform the American people voted for? Once again, there is a lot of legitimacy to what Van Swole is saying there and what Elon Musk is thus agreeing with. However, I don't think there is some, fissure between the 2 individuals. There's some fracture of Musk and Trump. I think it's just a disagreement on this particular bill, but we'll see. Donald Trump truthed this out. President Trump truthed this out yesterday afternoon. And I think this is the way that Donald Trump is saying everything is fine here. There's nothing to see. There's no major fallout or anything. And President Trump retruthed Elon Musk's post from May 28th, saying, as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The Doge mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. So again, I don't think there's some major fallout. It's just a disagreement on this bill. It happens. We need to do this. Okay. I think I've heard John talk about this, saying that, maybe this is a way to teach people to not be worried and afraid to buck against the system and to go against the party and to push back on people when you feel something's wrong. And I've said many times, I think this one big, beautiful bill is an absolute load of crap. There's a lot of good things in it. The tax cuts are good. There's some Doge cuts in there, but there's a lot of stuff in there that's absolute crap. And I want to get back to being able to not have to rely on passing these massive, massive bills in order to get something across the finish line, which, by the way, there is no finish line on this. The tax cuts can be voted on independently, like from all the rest of the stuff in that omnibus bill. So, the fact that you have to put the idea that you have to put all of this stuff into one bill just so that everybody gets a little bit of what they want and therefore it'll pass is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And this is why we're $36 trillion in debt, because people go out there and they're, well, I didn't get my $3 million for this little theater in my town right here. And so I'm not voting on this bill. Dude, it cuts taxes for every single American across the board. And, hopefully the tariffs pick up that slack. But you guys get what I'm saying? All right. I hope I'm making sense. All right. On that note, let me go ahead and bring on this latecomer right here. Good morning, sunshine.
Good morning, family.
So now I'm really putting you on notice right here. I'm on blast, not on notice, but on blast. So I text Alpha every single morning on Thursdays at about 9:30. And I text him radio check or do you copy, something along those lines. He never responds, letting me know that he's breathing. And this morning I did the same thing. And I was like, damn, dude. Damn. So good morning, sunshine.
Good morning. Have you checked any of the Stephen Miller's posts regarding this conversation with the big beautiful bill?
No, but let's expand on it. Do it.
Okay. So I want to bring up.
Wait. By the way, I got it. You weren't here for my Chef IQ ad. You've used them, right?
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Let me just throw this back up because I actually wanted to talk about this with Alpha because Alpha called me right after he got his. He called me and was telling me how awesome they were. So I just wanted to, I'm doubling down for this product here because it is really a phenomenal product.
So here's one of the things that I want to say about it. First, if you get lazy with it, it's going to let you know. So I've used it probably, like no kidding, probably about 10, 11 times already.
Yep.
And the last time I was a little bit in a hurry. And so, I jabbed the meat, everything looked good, because you went through how it shows you the instructions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prep the grill. All right. So when you get to I think it's number 3 is when you actually put the device in. Yeah. The needle, the temperature gauge, you put it in there. And so I go put everything on the grill, just like I've always done. I come back in, I start working on some stuff and my phone starts giving me an alert, like an audible alert, like it catches your attention. Chef IQ, you gotta give can something for me on Thursday mornings. And I'm joking. But so I go and I look at my phone and it's all I think it's the improper, not proper placement of the probe. So I'm like, what the heck? So I go out there with get my pan, take the meat, put it off. Well, normally when I put it in, I always, flip it, both sides, but I had already prepped that one side, so I didn't. Well, when I put the probe in, I put it too much at an angle. So the bottom of the needle was poking out of the bottom of the meat, and the thing literally alerted me. I was able to readjust it and right back to it. So it'll even protect you from doing mistakes. But I think the most phenomenal part is the first. Listen, we all have trust issues when it comes to devices and tech, right? So the first time that I used it, I still had my normal timers going that I do. Mm-hmm. And so because it says, listen, you put it in, you'll get a second alert to flip it, and then the next time you're coming out, it's because your meat's ready. That's what it tells you. So I was like, all right, let's test this, and it absolutely did. It's telling you the temperature of the meat, the approximate time to your first flip, but even the rest time.
Yep.
Like this was one of the questions that we had asked when talking to them. Doesn't account for that? Yeah, and it absolutely does. This thing, it has been absolutely perfect. If you want medium, you're gonna get medium. You want medium well, you're gonna get it is. I cannot say how awesome this has been, and just the peace of mind, because once you've used it a couple times, you got the confidence, and it's super easy.
All right. We got to get going here, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because Alpha was praising it when we talked earlier. But chefiq.com, promo code Badlands. All right, we gotta roll on. Namster in the chat says, CannCon, you realize this is a reconciliation bill and not a new spending bill, which comes in September. Yes, absolutely, and that's why there's no urgency on this. The urgency is for the tax cuts because the tax cuts are going to expire here pretty soon, and so if they need to get this bill across, pass it as a single item bill and get the tax cuts, codified in. But go ahead, bring up the Stephen Miller.
So I'm looking for one specific one, and
And while he's looking for that, welcome to all of our
ahead.
folks over on YouTube. You guys missed the story. I had to do one story that I couldn't put on YouTube.
Oh, gotcha.
The Sherry Tenpenny story on Gateway Pundit.
I'm not even aware of that one.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. All right, what you got?
She's okay though, right?
Yeah. She's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it has something to do with that. You know. Okay.
Yep.
So I'll read these, but there's another one, and I'll look for it to find it. But he provides this perspective. So this is one from 11 hours ago, and then I'll read one that's a little bit more in depth. He says there are two ways to raise the debt ceiling. Number one, with Chuck Schumer at 60 votes, which means higher taxes, higher spending, liberal wish list. Number two, in reconciliation at 50 votes, which means permanent tax cuts, permanent welfare reform, permanent border security. And I actually think here the priority thing is the military and the border security. So there's that one. The next one that I'll read, let me look at that. I want to read them in order. So that's
hang on. Let me push back on that idea right there just real quick, because I understand the reconciliation bill. You only need 50 votes, but you still don't need to do it in an omnibus. You should be able to get the 50 votes on just the tax cuts, on just the border spending.
I'm trying to find the one where he addresses that, because he says, I agree on doing these one issue bills and all that, but he expresses why right now and with this timing that is not such a great idea. And here, let me just read the other ones I have, and then I'll get to that one. So the next one he puts up, and this is responding to Rand Paul. So Rand Paul put out a post: while I oppose increasing the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, I enthusiastically support making the tax cuts permanent and could vote for the big, not yet beautiful bill if the debt ceiling were voted on separately. So then Stephen Miller responds to that. He says, with the post below, Rand just conceded he has no substantive objections to any provision in the bill because he knows it is a big tax cut combined with a big spending cut combined with permanent border security. His sole objection is what he wants to force Republicans and President Trump to make a deal with Schumer to raise the debt ceiling that he can then vote against. Of course, a deal with Schumer to raise the debt ceiling means a tax hike and a spending hike. So his sole demand is to take a course of action that equals more spending and more taxing, and still, of course, extending the borrowing limits. And I think he makes a solid point there if he puts this back with Schumer. I think that is solid. If you want to push back on that one before I read the next one.
No, I'm good with that.
All right, this next one, this one's short too. He goes, the big beautiful bill contains three major sections. Number one, the most significant border security and deportation effort in history, including the entire wall up front now, with no possibility of democratic obstruction. Number two, full extension and expansion of the Trump tax cuts. This is what CBO is scoring, not spending. Tax cuts, the ones we campaigned on and pledged. Three, the largest welfare reform in history, cutting almost $2 trillion in spending net. Item one alone, border security and deportation, makes this the most important legislation for the conservative project in the history of the nation. And the reason why I said, I've been saying that border part is the most important part. And again, this goes back to the largest deployment of the U.S. military at our southern border before. We've had that conversation. And I think that there's a there. If you want to comment on those, and I'll look for this last one that, I mean, he has a lot of them, but there's one specifically because I think the best argument that's made, because I agree with it, is that break these items down into single issue bills and then let's vote on them. And he addresses that one, but it was a few days ago. So if you want to talk on it, and I'll look for that.
Well, that's my only big discrepancy with any of these bills, is because this bill is over 1,000 pages. You know, Ash and I just read about this in Overruled on Badlands Book Club on Tuesday night. Shameless plug. But we just read about this, how, the civil rights. Well, let me read it exactly as Gorsuch wrote it, because this is the problem that we're facing. And stand by, I got it right here. It says by 2018, the U.S. Code encompassed 54 volumes and approximately 60,000 pages. The U.S. No, here it is. Nowadays, it's not unusual for new laws to span hundreds of pages. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 ran more than 600 pages. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, almost 1,000 pages. And the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, which had a COVID-19 relief package, more than 5,000 pages. By comparison, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 28 pages. So that's what I'm saying right there when we talk about civil line appropriation bills is we can't have these people reading 1,000-page bills. Was it MTG the other day that was on the floor of Congress? Like, whoa, I didn't know this was in there, and you voted for it.
Yeah, what a moron. I said, what a moron. Listen, I'm not gonna.
No, she's not a moron. She's not. Well, she is a moron, but they're all morons because they don't read the bill, because Rand Paul's Read the Bill Act never got passed.
Then you don't allow. If you have not had the ability with you and your team at least to read the entire bill, don't vote on it.
See,
and here's the thing: if all the Republicans don't vote on something, they're no shows, but they go make public statements. I didn't have time to read it, so I didn't vote on it neither way. And so if the Democrats passed it because we didn't have it and we control the House, or we can, control the Senate, then put it on our Senate Majority Leader, put it on the Speaker of the House to make these one issue votes. Because if we can't read it, we're not voting on it. And then put the political pressure there. Now, we're not there yet, obviously, even though I agree with you. So here's what Stephen Miller says about this particular point you guys are talking about. He goes, for those saying do separate bills, each would then require 60 votes, needing Schumer instead of 50. Reconciliation is a special process each fiscal year where you can make fiscal changes with 50 votes. That's why the BBB is the vehicle for tax cuts, deportations, and welfare. And I think he makes a solid point here that if you break this up into, you're going to start conceding on these other things, and they're going to get, who knows how long they're going to take, whatever the case may be. But I think that's a significant point, bro, that at 50, we're going to get every single thing that we want. We're not, there's no concessions to the Democrats at all. And then the last part, I found this one while looking for that one. He goes, one of the bigger points of the confusion on the BBB is spending versus tax cuts. The left, and I know you understand this, but I want to make sure the audience does, because I hear this one being talked about a lot as well. The lefty CBO says extending the 2017 tax cuts, preventing their expiration, increases the deficit. Some critics have seen this figure and claimed or implied the bill increases spending. Even according to CBO, the bill cuts spending over $1.6 trillion. So when Libertarian attacks the deficit impact of the bill, they are attacking the tax cut. Of course, honestly accounted, extending current tax rates has zero deficit impact, which is why the bill, because of its spending cuts, reduces the deficit. A second major point of confusion is what actually is in a reconciliation bill. It is not an appropriations bill or a general budget bill. It provides no funding or authorization for 99% plus of the operations of the government. It was written not by the appropriators, but some of the most conservative members of the House. It has not a single Democrat provision or vote. The bill has three principal sections: tax cuts, welfare reform, immigration, and border security. This is a dream bill.
Again, man, by trying to subvert the possibility of a filibuster, we're at that point, you're no different than the Democrats, who for the last 5 years have been talking about how to get rid of the filibuster so they could pass their own agenda. And the filibuster is there for a reason. And as crazy as we think the Democrats are, there are some that at least have common sense a little bit, and will in the Senate. Yeah, there are.
I've seen one example, and you're the one that showed it to me. That's the only example I've seen in the last couple of years.
I mean, can you name 15 Democrat senators off the top of your head?
Yes.
The problem is we all know about the Schumers, and we know about the, we know about the ones that are out there talking publicly. But there are actually a lot that cross the aisle and vote along the lines of with the Republicans on some of these bills.
Not when it matters, though. And that's why I may not
Okay,
know.
here's the other problem, Alpha. If we do this way now, in 5 years, if they happen to win the presidency through a rigged election, they're going to do the same thing.
But that's the thing. They're not going to have that opportunity, because if they're doing this, they're setting up to fix the elections, because here's the thing. If we have to, I don't want to say have to, we always have the choice. There's an understanding, and that at least our section of this information war understands, that if we don't fix the elections, nothing else matters. Nothing. Not border security, not national, international, but nothing else matters, because exactly what you're saying is going to happen. They're going to implant the people they want, and they're going to rebuild the establishment. It means all we did was really just buy time and create a hurdle. That's all we did. And it's a hurdle that they can beat over time. So if the elections aren't completely secured, everything we're fighting for right now is in vain. So
you're preaching to the choir on that.
So that means, and Trump and them understand this. I know they do. And when they're making the moves they're doing, I understand that they're making these moves with the foreknowledge that they're not going to have the ability to do this kind of stuff again, like what you're suggesting, like they've done in the past, because they're not going to have the ability to implement or implant their votes, whether it be the House or the Senate or both, because the elections are going to be fair, and you're going to actually have legitimate Democrats in the future. They understand that. To me, that's a foundational principle that they understand, and that's why they're making the moves that they're moving on. And the other thing too is time is of the essence right now. We said that with the budget bill, that kind of, was really Biden's that got kind of handed into Trump's, that Massey and them got in the way with it. My biggest concern in this bill is the AI section. Now, I talked to two guys, one that is very pro AI and one that is anti AI, because I wanted, and I'll land it here for this final thought, unless you want to talk about it. I want to know what is the biggest pro and the biggest con here from two people at the extreme ends of the spectrum, right? Because I really had my personal feelings on this. The against it one, I think, is the one that we all kind of considered. Well, then you're allowing the federal government to implement this without the states ever being able to say, no, I want to make this change, or no, I want to make that change. And, states' rights are they're the most important. And then that entire argument, which I was kind of on, I'm still kind of on the side of that, like 100%, 99.9%. The guy that was pro, the woman that was pro this AI section, she's very, very like dialed in when it comes to AI, said, if the independent, she goes, there's an artificial intelligence race right now. She goes, Trump can control what we're doing on the federal level, but at the state level, states have their own rights. She goes, whoever falls behind in the artificial intelligence race is a race you can never catch up on. You can't. There's no, hey, we'll do this, we'll spend this much money. She goes, once you're behind, you're behind. She goes, the artificial intelligence race is unlike any other, because once you take the lead on this one, for eternity, you're always the lead. She goes, it's not like the nuclear arms race. It's not that you're always in the lead. She goes, right now, she goes, because of the secrets and stuff that China has stolen from us, and this goes all the way back to Hillary Clinton's, the email leaks and all that other stuff. She goes, they have the ability to take that lead. Trump recognizes it. She goes, if Trump has full control of the government to pass it at the government level, he gets to do exactly what he needs to do, make sure that we don't fall behind forever on AI.
And you just throw the Constitution out in the meantime.
She goes, hold on. She goes, hold on. And I agree with you on this particular section. And that's why I want to have this discussion with you. She goes, we know China controls certain governors. She goes, if these governors pass artificial intelligence things that are going to, two things. A, create leaks that's going to allow China to tap into what Trump's doing with the AI, because they'll have some portions of it, because of she goes, there's technology that's going to get released that can't get released until this bill is passed. She goes, and two, she goes, these other governors can do stuff with the artificial intelligence that will actually affect the other states. She goes, go back and think about what they did during the voting. this state said you were doing this. The courts didn't really vote for it in our pace, where the other states were saying they're victims. She goes, they will implement that when it comes to artificial intelligence to make sure we fall behind. She goes, if Trump doesn't get that particular portion, she goes, we are no longer the world superpower. That is how significant that AI section is. Again, it brings us back to, well, what measures do we take? So here's my question to you, because I'm 100% with the Constitution on you right now, and I'm dealing with this.
Hey, hold on. We got to go to just real quick. We'll come back to this, but Ash is joining us to give us an update on the Lindell trial before she goes in, and we got to get her up here before she has to get in there. Ash, what's going on? How you doing?
Hi guys, I'm good. Thanks for fitting me in really quickly because I want to get in there and get a spot. Yesterday at the end of the trial, they were not able to get Joe Oltmann in, so he's expected to testify today. His claim of the Antifa phone call is the center of this case, the center of the defamation claims in this case. And so that's going to be kind of must-see TV. Brian, you and I were talking about that last night. So I'm looking forward to that. I will be live tweeting on X. Well, I'll be delay tweeting on X because the media order says that I have to wait until we're on a break. So I'll be batch posting like I did on Monday today. But yeah, any questions?
So yesterday we got the testimony from Matt Crane. Can you give us an overview of what happened with that?
Yeah, so as I understand it, he confirmed that he and Eric Coomer are very good friends. He was asked about their relationship, about his wife's relationship. Matt Crane's wife was a Dominion employee, Lisa Flanagan Crane. And so he was asked about that. He admitted that he's invested in the outcome of the case, that he definitely wants Mike Lindell to pay because of the power of the misinformation and all of that kind of stuff that we would expect. But one of the funny things that I heard came out of that trial was, or of that cross-examination, was that Matt Crane said that the risk limiting audit is one of the biggest reasons that people can trust elections. And the Mike's attorneys said, are we talking about the 2020 election? And Matt Crane said yes. And apparently Matt Crane didn't know that in 2020, only 4 states used risk limiting audits. My source said he looked like a fool in front of the jury. So I wasn't there. So I can't say for certain, but I did check my information with 3 different people that were there. So
do you know if he offered anything else? And maybe you could prod around and see, did he offer anything else that would give credulity to the 2020 election besides the risk limiting audits? Because that's what we were told.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine it's more of the same. So Matt Crane is the elections subject matter expert here in Colorado. He's the guy that when we were fighting the Senate Bill 22-153, which took power out of the hands of the counties and put it in the hands of the state, he was the guy that sent talking points to every elected official in the at the state level, all the General Assembly members, all of the executive branch members, kind of telling them how to deal with our quote unquote misinformation that say the machines were vulnerable and whatnot. In that we got, SQL is installed, but it's not a big deal. And some people use it and all that kind of stuff. I would imagine if it came up, it would be more of the same of that, but I don't know for sure.
Ash, quick question before you go. With they're controlling what Joe can say and can't say. Is that something that's going to hold over once he's done testifying, or is he going to be able to share publicly the stuff that the court's not going to let him share to the jury?
So I don't think that I don't know of any formal gag order. All witnesses are kind of sequestered, right? So they're not supposed to speak. They're not supposed to share information, and nobody is allowed to post or stream from inside the courthouse here. I can't imagine without a formal gag order, like, for example, President Trump has in the Mershon case, the hush money case, without something formal like that. And as I've seen, nothing has been filed. I don't know how the court could enforce anything like that, Alpha. But yeah, while he's under subpoena to testify, they absolutely can tell him that he can't be out there talking about the trial.
Well, he did a post and a video saying that, and I've been on the receiving end of this as well, so I know what he's talking about. Where the court has already said when he talks about certain questions that are going to be brought up, that he cannot go beyond certain information. So one of the things that Joe said is, I'm going to testify in front of a jury, and they're not letting me say the complete package.
Yeah, and that has to do with the guardrails of what the relevance is. So certain areas of testimony in this case have already been we talked about this a little bit on Monday, have already been discounted as irrelevant. And so it'll depend on if the door is open. Now, if plaintiff attorneys ask him something that opens the door to some of that stuff, he should be allowed to say it. I don't know what his testimony is going to be. I'm very excited to hear it and to hear what happens with this is I think kind of the definitive moment for the Antifa call story. It's this is the time when that's either proven true or proven false.
Last question, Ash, before we get out of here. You had mentioned yesterday, and I just want to kind of get this out there, that potentially there was a little discrepancy with one of the witnesses and not sequestering themselves during a break.
Yeah, and I heard this from two different people, and that it is in the record. Now, we don't have trial transcripts, so I can't confirm it. But I was told that during the break in Matt Crane's testimony, so he was direct examined, and then they had a break, right? Bathroom break, bio break, and then he was cross-examined. What I was told is, and that this is a part of the record, that he was in the room, Matt Crane was in the room with Eric Coomer and his attorney in between his direct examination and his cross-examination. That shouldn't be allowed. You're not supposed to talk to anybody. I was told that he was asked by Mike's attorneys about it, and he said, "Oh no, we didn't talk about anything relating to the case. We're just friends. I just didn't want to go in the hallway," kind of stuff. So I'll try and get more information on that today, but it'll be interesting to see if anything happens.
All right, Ash, rock star, keep it up. Looking forward to your tweets today.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
All right, bye-bye. All right, there she is, Ash in America from Colorado. All right, so back to the one big beautiful bill in the AI portion. Let's land this thing here, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is, so they're not doing it unconstitutionally because they're making them vote on it. So
wait. What do you mean they're not doing it unconstitutional? This is an absolute violation of the 10th Amendment.
If they go and if they vote on it, well, yeah, there's no way around it, man.
Yeah, it's a violation of the 10th Amendment. That's plain and simple.
What are the choices then? Because here's the thing, and like I said,
the federal government can develop their AI, whatever they need to do at the federal level, and the state government absolutely has the right to regulate it however they so choose. Well, within the confines of the Constitution, within the bounds of the Constitution, but they have the right to make laws.
They do, and when we know that they have that right because they're not legally in those positions to have that right because they've stolen these elections, what are we supposed to do? Allow people who are not supposed to be in those positions of power to exploit the positions of power that they stole, which is going to make us fall behind something that's going to have an eternity consequence. We don't respond from that. And I think in this particular situation only, and I use the word only because we know that the people in power that are going to put us in that predicament shouldn't legally be there. And we know that that's going to get proven, because if it doesn't, we're in far more trouble than we understand. I support this. Yep. It's unprecedented, and you have to make this move. Because here's the thing. If we knew elections were legitimate and they were transparent and the people were in power were there because they were legally supposed to, and they create these predicaments, well, then it's a problem America has to work out. But in this situation, we're dealing with people that are going to make these choices that should not be there because they're there by stolen elections. And how else do we protect ourselves from those people?
Yeah, I agree with just about everything you said, except, you got to keep in mind that they have to figure out a way to do this while skirting the Constitution and staying within, the guardrails put up by it. And this is something that we'll hash out more in depth when we're not, doing a general news show, because it is something that needs to be talked about. And it's something that's been talked about. Me and Ash have been talking about AI for years now, and I've been called a doomer and everything else over it. And here we are. But anyways, let's move on. I want to play this clip here from Chuck Schumer because the Democrats have now gotten their talking points about the one big beautiful bill, and I want to see if you pick up on. Well, first off, he's going to propagandize the shit out of you right here. Chucky Schumer, propagandize.
For many Americans, health care coverage is the difference between life and death. But, according to Ernst, fear not, we're going to die anyway. Tell that. The American people have heard it. Let me be clear, Democrats are ready. We are ready to fight. We are doubling down. We're ready to show Americans what's really at stake here, because this fight won't be won in just the Capitol. As Abe Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. And when public sentiment hears about this "we're all going to die" act, they're going to hate it. And they're going to tell their senators they hate it. And if the senators think they can get away with a yes vote and explain it, they're sadly mistaken. The cuts are too deep. The cuts are too real. The cuts are too
We're all going to
devastating
die.
for people.
By the way, none of those things are actually cut. They're just
Okay.
shored up.
And finally, why are they doing all this? Why are they being so mean? Why are they being so cruel? And why are they being so politically tin-eared at best, suicidal at worst, all to give tax breaks to billionaires?
This is so
They are
bad.
in total obeisance, Donald Trump is, and his colleagues are, to the small group of very wealthy, greedy people who say, I don't care what you do to everyone else, cut my taxes. And by the way, get rid of any regulations.
Oh my God.
What a phenomenal strategy by them, because they know what's coming.
Yes. They
Because
do.
listen, if you know, you and Massey and Rand Paul, you know, you anti-Trumpers, get your damn way, and I'm joking with you. And this big beautiful bill doesn't pass and it gets sent back down. Schumer and squad are going to use that to obliterate Trump. You see, even the good ones on his side, you know, understand this. You know, there was some, you know, the good ones crossed the aisle to, you know, to make sure this bill didn't pass. And it's actually going to create more division. It's going to subvert the support of Trump, and it's going to make it look worse than what it really is. You have that. Two, we are all going to die. Like, that's not misinformation, you know, unless he knows something we don't know.
Eventually. I don't know. Maybe the strategy is to, I don't know. I would like to see a bill that they could filibuster. And then when our taxes go up, you just point the finger at the 8 people that filibustered that bill and wouldn't cross over to get 60. I don't know. But
I know we got to move on. I want to understand, if you understand and if the audience understands, like, that this is not just a presidency where Trump has to set it up for the next presidency. Like, in this presidency, there are things that need to be accomplished, or it's done. There's no more chances. It's done. Well, if Trump doesn't position this country to where they can no longer ever do what they've done, then the United States as we know it is over. Like, there's the doomsday. There's the black pill.
Yep. This is, well, and even if this is passed, there's going to be a massive transformation, not just in the United States, but globally, in how everything's run. And this is something, you know, I've heard a lot of people, they get upset about this, you know, with the AI portion of the bill and everything like that. It's overreach, you know, our data and all this. Guys, that ship has sailed a long time ago. You have absolutely no privacy unless you live out in the middle of the woods and, you know, you have no technology whatsoever and you still use a furnace, or not a furnace, but what do they call the kettles in the middle of the house? I'm a Florida boy, so I don't know. We don't have that kind of stuff. Like a fireplace, you know, a fire pit or whatever in the middle of your house that heats the whole home. You're on the grid, folks. Period. Get a data bill of rights, and now we can start talking. But that mean, cruel thing, I heard it again from Jasmine Crockett, and I'm starting to think, is that going to be their 2026 slogan, that Republicans are mean, MAGA is mean and cruel? Check this out.
And so now that there's like the family infighting, we see, you know, even Elon Musk, honey, he can't get out of the Twitter, right? Like, he is talking about the bill and trying to take the bill and telling people, call your senators and make sure you take this bill down. And listen, I never thought there would be a day that I would agree with Elon on anything, but that's where we are, where people are finally starting to say, you know what, this is actually impacting me a little too much. I'm gonna have to speak up and speak out against this. But my issue is this: all of y'all voted for this so that it would hurt somebody else. The problem was, you got upset when you found out that, oh shoot, it can hurt me too. And honestly, it's ingrained in who Democrats are, is that we actually care and we love and we want to take care of everybody. And that's why we got this big tent party and we all over the place. But I will tell you that compassion is something that we are missing in Congress.
Yes.
Like caring is something that we are missing in politics in general. And that's the only way you can justify a senator going out there and saying, well, everybody gonna die. And then decide that you're gonna do your apology, not so much an apology, in what looked like a graveyard. Right. I'm like, listen, ain't nobody elect you.
I don't even know what to say to that level of stupidity, but she qualified herself when she said, I can't believe I never thought I would agree with anything Elon Musk says. So immediately she's setting the battle lines there that she is a low IQ individual, and Elon Musk, who is, you know, pretty intelligent, was a darling child of the Democrats up until, you know, probably about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago when he bought X. And she won't agree with him, which it makes perfect sense compared to everything else she just said, that Democrats are the loving and caring people. And that's why we're $36 trillion in debt, because they're not loving and caring. They're enabling. They enable people to buy their votes through general welfare, welfare subsidies and things like that they hand out to these people, make them lifelong dependent and have no sovereignty, no individual drive to achieve. And instead just try and, you know, and I'm not talking about people that, you know, get a little bit of kickback from SNAP or something. I'm talking about people that literally do nothing all day, but have kids and collect government subsidies. And this happens across it's not something small, but that's the difference between what this bill is trying to do and what she's saying right here. She's saying that we love everybody. We just want to give you everything. That's what Democrats do. Republicans are mean. They don't want to give you things.
Well, the enabling part, enablers is absolutely, I agree with you. But I mean, even beyond that, the reason they're able to be enablers is because they create the formula for that scenario to begin with. You know, they create the poverty, they create all this. And then, like you said, they offer extra government cheese in order to keep that base there. That's the problem, is what Trump's doing, putting us in a direction of, is you wouldn't have to have enablers, because it's going to the root of the problem. You know, the Democrats, you know, they do politics the way Big Pharma does medicine. You know, treat the symptoms, not the problem. And that's the issue. The other thing that she said that I found that was very important as well is, it kind of goes to the previous conversation we have, is she goes, all this infighting within their family, they're going to exploit that. They're going to exploit that, because obviously they got their talking points, and that's one that's in there. Before you push on to the next subject, you did mention something in here with you know, our data, and you know, it's already out there. And then I'm assuming you're talking around the Palantir conversations that are out there
about our data. Well, no, the Palantir, that's a non-factor to me. Like, okay. I haven't even given that story. As soon as I saw the Social Security and IRS segment of that story, I was like, this is part of the plan. Like, this isn't, they're trying to make something macro that is very micro. So that doesn't really concern me.
So with that, because that's another, the two big things, and I knew we would cover them because I just know the way you are, was the big beautiful bill, and then Palantir was the one that, as far as like the social media temperature, that people are being exploited on this, and they're not being told the truth, and they're being told of a threat. And listen, I'm not no Palantir fan, because I'm not a fan of Peter Thiel and these other things, but CAG actually did a really quick short post that I want to read, Ken, because it explains this really well. He goes, so many ran.
Pull it up. When you do that, pull it up.
Let me see.
Some people need to read and can't be read too. and just real quick, Therese said we should be having kids. Yes, I agree, we should be having kids, but not to game the system.
Yeah, kids to raise, not kids to get a check.
Exactly, and that happens all the time. I'm sure, Alpha, you've seen many cases in your former line of work.
100%, man. Man, I'll bring up a conversation that'll piss you off. To this day, it still pisses me off. So CAG writes, so many ran with Palantir master database clickbait without reading past the headlines. Typical NY Times story, exaggerating a routine process. This is basic information the government already has. This is your point, Ken. In March, Trump ordered agencies to share information with each other for efficiency. Doge, that's it. Palantir's tools are already in use, like helping ICE track illegal immigrants, and have been for a long time since previous administrations. Trump is leveraging their tech to improve interoperability across federal agencies, which streamlines government operations like immigration enforcement. The data is housed on government servers, not with Palantir. Now, the same leftist news outlets that demand J6ers be in prison are sensationalizing this as some fastest overreach, and so many are falling for it. And here's the issue. You have a lot of people on social media within the conservative, allegedly within the conservative demographic, that are saying Palantir is going to have all our info, and that is not the case here. It is a software program, and our government does these software programs updates all the time. And here's the issue. And he actually did another post that was really good. The government uses Microsoft computers. Does that mean that Bill Gates is hands deep into the government? And aside from the other leveraging part, I'm talking specifically about just that topic.
To be fair, they probably do have back doors to get.
Well, the way and so I'm trying to remember which. It might have been there was a former staffer that was in one of the spaces that explained that particular part, and he says when these software things come over, our government has 2 different checks that run through these software programs looking for those specific backdoors. That's how it's supposed to work, and I'm not with you there. It's supposed to, and how they do work is 2 different stories. But nonetheless, those things are in play. The one thing we do know is that the software that's in use right now is software that's being manipulated. And so if Trump is doing one that's across the board, all of them are using it for that interoperability, I think that there's a reason for that. But I think, like I said, the main point being made is people are saying Palantir is going to have all our stuff. Palantir's, and that is not the case here. It's our servers, not Palantir's. And I just wanted to put that information out there for those that are still finding it confusing.
Yesterday, I briefly only got to listen to a little bit of Chris's interview with Konstantin von Hofmeister. I think that's his name. And I didn't get to listen to the whole thing, but there's one part in there where Hofmeister was saying that, essentially these people that are pushing back against the idea of, moving forward into the next kind of generation of technology and everything, don't understand that we're well beyond that point. Like when Alpha's sitting here talking about our data and being on government servers, the government servers, I believe the data that the government has on us as individuals pales into comparison what anybody that has a terms of use agreement on this device right here has on us. I mean, how many times do you sit there and see an ad pop up for something that you were just talking about 10 minutes ago with, like I'll say, me and my wife were talking about going on a cruise, and then my inbox is filled with cruise. I did one where I was talking about AI and the problems with like deep fake AI porn and stuff like that. And what do I get? Ads on my phone for an AI program that will take clothes off of pictures. Like it's listening to you 24/7. Yeah, Alpha, I knew you like that. This isn't Y-Chromes, homie. Let's keep it.
What application was that?
Yeah. Anyways, we'll just take your phone out and talk about an AI program that will remove the clothes off of pictures in your phone, and there you go. You've got it.
I mean, there's a legitimate concern with that. I mean, you guys, I think me and you are on the same page here of, I don't want Skynet. Like, I'm terrified of Skynet.
Skynet.
One of the things, so here's another question I asked these 2 different people on the AI conversation, the pro and the anti. Here's one thing they both agreed on. The genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in.
Exactly. Pandora's box is sprung wide open. In fact, they took a sledgehammer to it.
And that was the fact that they both agreed on that part was listen, it put me in a position I wasn't happy with, bro. Because if you have both sides that are saying, listen, you can't put it away. It's there. And the only choice you have now is to make sure that the good guys control it and not the bad guys. That's the new conversation.
Yep. 100%, man. And I'm moving on that direction to where we got to figure out who, and I don't even want to say necessarily the good guys and the bad guys, because again, that's a subjective term. Like, people have different perspectives on who's good and who's bad, but I would much rather the people that are aligned with the MAGA movement, at least on the surface right now. I would rather them moving in this direction with President Trump overseeing this right now as we go through, and some of the other people in his administration that we have some faith in. But it's going to happen. So it's either we do it under the Trump administration right now, and it's going to be, fast, swift, painful. We might not like everything that comes out of it, or we can do it in, 5 years when maybe, God forbid, a Pete Buttigieg or an AOC happens to win the presidency in a rigged election. So
let me ask you a very, very unfair and almost impossible ever to happen hypothetical. Let's say it's CannCon, wifey, and let's say there's 2 little CannCons, right? And it's the apocalypse, and your food that you saved up, there's some catastrophic event that happens in your home, and it all gets compromised, all the food that you saved, and you have a neighbor across the street. Not a friend, not an enemy, but a neighbor across the street also has a family, and he has food. And you ask, and he says no. And your family survival is the only thing that's left. Are you going to do whatever you need to do to take that food from your neighbor?
Yep.
Yeah, so am
in
I.
an apocalypse, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so am I. And I'm glad you brought up in an apocalypse, because that's where we're at with the AI right now. We're in that apocalypse. And to bring us back, and I know you're trying to get away from that conversation, but it's so important, Brian. It's so important, is we're going to have to make moves and decisions that we otherwise probably wouldn't have ever made. But that's the level that's how serious things are right now.
Yep. I'm with you. Okay, so after all that stuff that we just went through, and the dooming and everything else, and how America hates this bill and everything else, I just want to highlight this little point right here, that real clear politics: President Trump, Obama, Bush, second term approval. Trump is beating both of them. His approval is just under 48% at 47.5%. Obama was at 47.1 and Bush at 45.9 at the same point in their second terms. So I think that's interesting. Man, I'm going to have to mix things around real quick here. I was going to play this clip here of Sonny Hostin, but Sonny Hostin's just spreading more bullshit propaganda that 300,000 people have died because of Doge cuts as an absolute fact, and is not an absolute fact. I was going to tie that in with Bono here, who we played earlier in the week on Joe Rogan, where he said the same thing, but at least he was honest enough, candid enough to say it hasn't been proven, but they say that 300,000 people. So we can move on from that. Let's get into this story here from the AP. Trump's promised steel and aluminum tariffs go into effect. President Donald Trump hiked nearly all of his tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to 50% on Wednesday. Steel and aluminum in the UK is the exception. British imports of these metals are still levied at 25% per a proclamation issued by President Trump, which pointed to a recent trade deal reached between the two countries. And that's pretty much all I've got on this story. We knew this was coming. President Trump was in Pittsburgh over the weekend, steel capital of the U.S., saying we're going to bring back American steel, U.S. steel. We're going to make it great again, and all the, the other stuff. And that's the goal. That's been the goal the whole time. To re-onshore a lot of these industries. And just for proof and whatever you want to call it, I'll just highlight this real quick. We went really long, so I'm kind of cutting and pasting a little bit here. Zero Hedge put this out this morning. Procter & Gamble to axe 7,000 jobs amid challenging environment. Okay. Wait till you see this. Procter & Gamble announced a restructuring plan at a Paris-based conference, revealing plans to slash upwards of 7,000 jobs, 15% of its global non-manufacturing workforce over the next 2 years. These aren't American jobs. These are global jobs. So why is that significant that they're global jobs? Because to me, it signals that there isn't going to be this massive globalist empire by these corporations like Procter & Gamble, and that they're going to have to scale back because stuff is going to be more onshored back into America. And hopefully this same thing applies to other countries, by the way. Re-onshoring in America can benefit other countries as well if they start to become more sovereign and independent in their own manufacturing. It says the move comes amid uneven consumer demand and a challenging macro environment exacerbated by ongoing tariff uncertainty. All right.
And I think it's going to improve the quality of the goods
Yes.
as well, which is going to improve the competition, means that benefits us because of price.
Agreed.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, especially if you consider the conspiracy stuff surrounding Procter and Gamble, but that's for conversation for another day.
I think we've talked about that before on SitRep, I think, but not that in depth. So let's jump into this story here from Fox News. Democrat governor ripped as a total disgrace after vetoing a bill limiting Chinese land ownership near military bases. Of course, they're referring to the unelected fake governor of Arizona, Katie Hobbs. Arizona Senate Majority Leader Janae Shamp said that, quote, the quote unquote politically motivated veto was utterly insane, blaming Hobbs for being an obstructionist against safeguarding our citizens from threats. Hobbs said the bill, Senate Bill 1109, was ineffective at counter-espionage and did not directly protect American military assets in the state. So they passed a bill saying that foreign countries, not just China, could not buy land right around critical infrastructure, military bases, nuclear facilities, those kinds of things. Absolute common sense. In fact, I'd take it a step further. I don't think foreign countries as an entity should be able to own land in America, period. But I digress. It says, quote, Governor Hobbs' veto of Senate Bill 1109 hangs an open for the CCP sign on Arizona's front door, allowing communist China to buy up American land near critical assets like Luke Air Force Base, Palo Verde nuclear plant, and Taiwan Semiconductor's growing fabrication footprint, according to Michael Lucci, the CEO and founder of State Armor Action. So what was the justification for Hobbs doing this? Senate Bill 1109, which can still pass if the Arizona legislature overrides Hobbs's veto, would have prohibited the People's Republic of China from having a 30% or more stake in Arizona property. Hobbs, in her defense of the veto, added that in addition to being ineffective at countering Chinese espionage efforts, the bill lacked, quote, clear implementation criteria, which opened the door for arbitrary enforcement. However, the bill went through a bipartisan amendment process in an effort to assuage those concerns that the legislation might lead to discrimination in land sales. There it is, discrimination in land sales. So we're turning this into a racial thing. The initial version of the bill banned certain people and entities deemed to be national security threats from buying up land in Arizona. But following subsequent amendments, the bill only sought to ban Chinese government-linked entities and its subsidiaries. So the bill went from it could be potentially racist to literally being, racist by their definition of the term racist, by saying it's not just foreigners in general, it's only the Chinese that can't own here. And it should be all foreigners. Like anybody outside of America should not own land, especially near critical infrastructure.
100%. Absolutely. I've been screaming this one ever since I realized the issue that we have with it.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the strategic locations of the land they're trying to buy, around military bases or farmlands. And, there's a whole story going on with that as well.
Yeah, the last thing it says here is 27 states are currently considering 84 bills aimed at restricting foreign property ownership in some way, while Congress is currently considering 7 separate bills addressing the issues. 22 states have passed bills restricting foreign property ownership, 17 of which were passed into law in 2024. So it's not like this is some like pioneer bill in Arizona. Like almost every other state is either 40 if it's 27 states considering and 22 states that have already passed, that's 49 states that in some form or fashion are either considering this or have already done it. So Hobbs is just being a typical open border cartel Katie, communist.
I don't disagree with that. She won't be there very much longer. She'll be in handcuffs. So
I'm hoping, man. From Just the News, federal money trail leads to Chinese scientists charged in shocking pathogen plot memo show. So we covered this story yesterday. The DOJ indicted 2 Chinese students up in one's up in Michigan, and I think the other one's still in China, for allegedly trying to smuggle in some fungus that will turn us all into zombie. No, I'm just kidding. That will, have agricultural. They call it agroterrorism. Well, we got a little bit more on this story now. And the funding apparently is coming from us. We're paying for this. Yay. Records reviews show that both the China-born scientists charged this week were affiliated with the University of Michigan Research Laboratory, led by 2 senior researchers who are also Chinese citizens and are receiving funding from NIH for studying plant immunity. Ping He and Libo Shan, both of whom completed their undergrads in China and their doctoral and postdoctoral studies in the United States, are the senior faculty members at the Molecular Plant Microbe Interaction Working Group housed at the University of Michigan. According to NIH records, Shan and He received more than $7.6 million in total funding between 2 sponsored projects awarded, one to each scientist. Both NIH products were cited in at least two research papers involving both Jean and Liu. Those are the 2 that were indicted, the 2 Chinese students. Other research papers on which both Jean and Liu were authors cite awards from the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. The FBI said it is aware of the federal funding trail and that it exposes a serious national security risk with U.S. scientific research relying on foreign scientists, particularly from communist China. We talked about this, the Confucius Institute, about a month ago in the context of, Harvard and stopping the student visas and all that stuff. And this is something that's gonna, I think we're gonna get a lot more exposure on how bad the infiltration actually is. Pompeo alluded to it before he left before the Trump administration, quote unquote, left in 2020 with the board of governors. And there was also, 2 million Chinese spies worldwide, and over 50,000 of them have infiltrated the U.S. So,
dude, we had Chinese police stations.
I know, that's nuts.
In the United States.
I still can't believe that one.
It's crazy. And here's the thing, and with Columbia and Harvard, and the exposure Trump gave them, and we know that these are recruiting grounds for the 3-letter agencies.
Yep.
Now, that being understood, why would our 3-letter agencies want to recruit from the universities that have major funding and gifts from the CCP? When we see stuff like this going down, it's a huge issue. And like I said, there's a lot of people on social media and alternative media right now that want to just address one particular threat to this nation through one particular little country and completely are ignoring the threat that the CCP has.
Yeah.
And just to give you a heads up, there is one quick article when you have a chance that I'd like to cover, if we can get like a minute and a half to 2 minutes to it.
What's it related to?
This actually wouldn't be a bad time to bring it in. It's law enforcement related with police. So I'll read this headline and just the opener for you real quick. Investigation underway after fatal police shooting in Ocean Beach. This is out in San Diego. A man is dead after a welfare check turned into a pursuit, ending in a shooting a police officer in a shooting involving a police officer, in Ocean Beach Saturday morning. According to the San Diego Police Department, officers responded to the 4400 block of Coronado Avenue at 9:25 a.m. after receiving a call about a man standing in the middle of the street blocking traffic. When they arrived, officers reported observing the man in the roadway. After noticing police at the scene, the individual got into a vehicle. Officers began pursuing him until he crashed into another vehicle in the area of the 47,000 block of Bermuda Avenue in Ocean Beach. The man got out of his vehicle after the crash and reportedly grabbed the knife before lunging at the officers, who used lethal options to try to de-escalate the situation. The police department reports after he continued to walk towards the officers with the knife, that's when one of San Diego officers fired several rounds from a service weapon, striking, which ultimately killed him. Now, you got any problems with that so far?
No.
Justified shooting?
As far as I know, yeah.
And I agree with you, 100%. You want to know the issue here?
No. What's the issue?
So, me and you talked about this a long time ago when it first came up. You remember I told you California was making police officers out of illegal citizens?
Oh, he was an illegal?
This is the first police officer in California who is one of those DACA people, illegal people.
Oh, no.
So the issue here is you now have an illegal that was given a badge, authority, and a gun that killed an American citizen.
Oof.
This was, I kept telling everybody, it's not if it's going to happen. I said, it's going to happen. It's a matter of when. I didn't think it was going to be this fast, to be honest. I thought it would probably be a few years before that unfolded. It's probably been about 2 years now, 2.5 years now.
Or at least that it would stay under the radar,
But you here the point blank, regardless of my position here on the context of this shooting, no, the officer didn't have a right to, because he killed an American. He did not have the authority to kill an American. And that's what we have here. This only happened 4 days ago.
wow.
Or 4 or 5 days ago. So this is gonna catch traction pretty quick, especially because I know there's some groups of people that are kind of pro the mindset that I have, and they're actually trying to make this headlines, as they should.
That should be a headline. That should be. All right. Well, let's go ahead and check in with our next sponsor of the show before we move on. And folks, you're going to think that I'm describing, those weight loss injections. I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm not. These remarkable weight loss testimonials that I'm going to read to you in a second came from a doctor-formulated weight loss supplement called Lean. Patty S. said, I finally found a weight loss product that works. I wanted to lose 20 pounds, and Lean helps curb my appetite. Lori M. wrote, I've been struggling to get weight off, and Lean has been a lifesaver. I've been losing a couple of pounds a week or more. Kelly F. said, amazing. I immediately noticed an energy boost and a healthy weight loss in weight. I would promote this product to anyone. Lean was created by a doctor and university researcher to target the goals of GLP-1s, but without the injections. The studied ingredients in Lean have been shown to lower blood sugar, radically reduce appetite, and burn fat by converting it into energy. If you're struggling to lose weight and a healthy diet and exercise is not enough, Lean is for you. Let's get you started with 20% off. Use code Badlands20 at takelean.com. That's Badlands20 at takelean.com. Results may vary. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and is not a substitute for care from a healthcare provider. Okay, let's keep rolling here. So President Trump, we got the actual memoranda reviewing certain presidential actions. And let's just read over this. It says, for years, President Biden suffered from serious cognitive decline. The Department of Justice, for example, concluded that despite clear evidence that Biden had broken the law, he should not stand trial owing to his incompetent mental state. Are you trying to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard something. Sorry. The White House issued over 1,200 presidential documents, appointed 235 judges to the federal bench, and issued more pardons and commutations than any administration in U.S. history. There are serious doubts as to the decision-making process and even the degree of Biden's awareness of these actions being taken in his name. The vast majority of Biden's executives' actions were signed using an auto pen. This was especially true of actions taken during the second half of his presidency, quote-unquote presidency, when his cognitive decline had apparently become even more clear to those working most closely with him. If his advisors secretly used the mechanical signature pen to conceal this incapacity while taking radical executive actions all in his name, that would constitute an unconstitutional wielding of the power of the presidency. We like to call that treason, a circumstance that would have implications for the legality and validity of numerous executive actions undertaken in Biden's name. The counsel to the president, in consultation with the attorney general, shall investigate to the extent permitted by law whether certain individuals conspired to deceive the public about Biden's mental state and unconstitutionally exercise the authorities and responsibilities of the president. The investigation shall address any activity, coordinated or otherwise, to purposely shield the public from information regarding Biden's mental and physical health, any agreements between Biden's aides to cooperatively and falsely deem recorded videos of the president's cognitive abilities as fake, and any agreements between Biden's aides to require false public statements elevating the president's capabilities. This is pretty fire stuff right here. The purpose of these activities include to assert the authorities of the president, the policy documents for which the auto pen was used, including clemency grants, executive orders, presidential memoranda, or other presidential policies and decisions, who directed the president be affixed. Excuse me, that was the purpose of that, the investigation. So now we've got it like official that this is going. We saw yesterday Ed Martin had put it out there. Ed Martin's been making a lot of cryptic posts lately, and I love it. It's fascinating. But so let me see if I could grab this. Hold on, I'm moving things around. Did you see the Cringe Jean-Pierre story?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so she has now switched parties, alleged. Not switched parties, excuse me. She has now dropped the Democrat Party. And a lot of people are saying, oh, this is because she's putting a book out. And hell yeah, it is because she's putting a book out. Nobody wants to read her book. But you have to create some false motivation, false, like you have to astroturf the people into believing that, yeah, people actually buy the book from Corinne Jean-Pierre as she gets her money laundered book deal. So you drum this up, right? Oh, a lot of people got this. Oh man, let me see if I can find this story because it's really fascinating. Anyways, she's basically saying the same thing, that she might be speaking out against what took place during that administration and some of the things that took place. Her book sounds like a part 2 of Original Sin, the Tapper and Thompson book. Yeah, let me go ahead, and if you want to comment on that, and I see if I can find it real quick.
I find that very interesting. There's a love and hate thing that I have, or I'll say a love and a concern that I have surrounding the investigation with the auto pen. So one, I'm all about it. Of course, I don't want nobody to get it twisted, because we're going to identify a lot of stuff that was done outside the authority or the intent of the authority that was given to them. Kind of what you've been covering here in this section. Now, here's the thing. I see this. I mean, I don't see how you can make the argument against it. This is going to remove the legitimacy of a lot of the things that were done under President Biden, which everybody's like, well, okay, Alpha, where's the bad part here so far? And it should. But if you guys remember, and Brian, we had this conversation. I'm not sure if it was here, SitRep. I want to say it was Daily where we had it, where one of the ways that you could remove Biden's presidency was through the investigations into the elections. That would reveal the fraud. The fraud would reveal the illegitimacy. My concern here is I see this auto pen as the way they're going to use to deem Biden's presidency illegitimate. And so my concern is this the tactic that they're going to go and use to erase everything Biden did? And it's not going to be through uncovering what happened in the 2020 election. That's my concern.
So we've addressed this, and I think that, I've talked about this. I think that the auto pen story is to lay the foundation that if you prove Biden's illegitimacy, in this case, his cognitive decline, and most of this deals with later on in his presidency. Even President Trump in the memoranda says that, especially in the later years. I think you lay the foundation and kind of rip the Band-Aid off for the American people in a way that they can understand and they can directly relate to, and that isn't really that controversial, right? We all saw Biden's decline. We all saw that debate. We saw Biden withdraw from the campaign and the race. All of that we saw took place. Now, if the people
and for clarity, though, we noticed, I know Trump said in the later portion, but we saw this as he was campaigning for presidency. We saw that cognitive decline.
Of course. And back in 2019 and 2020, of course. But some of these people have not. If we can show them, okay, first off, the decline is real. Tapper's admitting it. Thompson's admitting it. All these people are admitting it. All your authoritative sources for these, normie leftists are telling you guys that this is true. Well, then the auto pen is in fact illegitimate. The signatures are illegitimate. So once you have that established and people understand that, okay, we can delegitimize some of the things that he was alleged to have done that he didn't actually do, then you get the election expose. And then all of a sudden it kind of makes it an easier pill to swallow. That's just my take on this.
So you see it more as a breaking the ice rather than a replacement.
Yes. Okay. It's not a replacement. I think this is laying the foundation. It's showing you, it's setting the precedent that this can happen. And that's just my take on this. I did find the article, and I don't think this is the one that actually outlines it, but let's get into this. Corinne Jean-Pierre is leaving the Democratic Party. Her former White House colleagues have some thoughts, and immediately she's getting blasted for this, because I think there might actually, this might be another case of like Original Sin, maybe not to the same extent, but this is supposedly, this book takes place the last 3 weeks before he dropped out of the campaign is what this book is supposed to allegedly be about, reportedly. It timed with the rollout of a new book has detonated long simmering grievances among former White House colleagues, saying that Jean-Pierre's pursuit of celebrity and personal media exposure while serving as the press secretary, the attention-grabbing ploy, they call it, the attention-grabbing ploy. A formal official said that Jean-Pierre had begun working during the Biden administration with a New York-based publicist, and he copied that person on an official email. She copied that person on an official emails before some of Pierre's White House colleagues intervened. By the way, she may have broken the law on that. If you're copying a publicist on official emails that he's not supposed to be attached to or CC'd on. Quote, everyone thinks this is a grift, said a former official, as Biden's press secretary, Jean-Pierre's halting, ineffectual briefings, exasperated reporters, and routinely offered material for the Republican Party's main X account. They are delegitimizing her the same way we have been for years, by the way, but they are now throwing slings and arrows at KJP. Something is coming out, from her. They are all in on trying to destroy her right now. Jean-Pierre's former staffers offered withering criticisms of what they see as an opportunistic grift. Quote, she made a joke about being in an independent last year, and now it's a book. All ideas are monetary, even the dumb ones, said one of those former staffers. Let me see if I have the part where...
This is going to give weight to some of the arguments that were made the last few years about her.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that feel that, she was an implant mole like AOC.
Yeah.
That's
just according to form. Go ahead.
I would say this would kind of support that theory. I don't believe it, but it would support it.
I don't believe it either, but it could. According to former officials, Pierre had been hoping for a post-White House job as a co-host on The View, following Jen Psaki, who departed and became an anchor on MSNBC. Crap, I'm trying to figure out. I don't have it up there, but I was reading this morning when I was prepping the show that, the book is supposed to be based around the last 3 weeks before Biden quit. And I don't know if it's going to expose cognitive decline or what, or the cover-ups that went on there. But you're going to see rats abandoning this sinking ship as the screws tighten on Joe Biden, not on Joe Biden specifically, but on the people around him. It's going to get uglier, and people are going to come out and say, I want self-preservation, right? I want to save my own skin.
And that's exposure. That's an exposure operation. And
Absolutely.
Guess what? We are seeing that happen on the MAGA conservative side as well now too.
Agreed.
You have to entertain the plausibility that the big beautiful bill, all these different things are the same thing, to expose people's true positions when it comes to MAGA, America First, and Trump.
Yep. Chairman Comer expands investigation into Biden mental decline cover-up. I think this is mostly, just trying to ride Trump's coattails on this, because none of this is going to apply. And I'll tell you why in a second. Last Congress, Chairman Comer subpoenaed 3 key White House aides, Annie Tomasini, Anthony Bernal, and Ashley Williams, who ran interference for Biden and also requested a transcribed interview with his physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor. The Biden White House obstructed the committee's investigation and refused to make the aides available for depositions or interviews. Chairman Comer has now renewed his request to Dr. O'Connor and former White House aides Tomasini, Bernal, and Williams, and Neera Tanden. Now, here's why this, also adding Mike Donilon, Anita Dunn, Ron Klein, Bruce Reed, and Steve Ricchetti for letters that he sent asking for, for them to come in and do interviews and all that. The reason it's not going to happen is, unfortunately, the precedent was set during the Trump administration when they claimed executive privilege. So I don't think you're going to see any of these people testify, but they may come in and testify. And once one does, it's what's the prisoner what's it called, the prisoner theory, where you have 2 prisoners, you ask them both the same question and compare the answers. What the hell is that? It's not the prisoner conundrum.
Yeah, you got me on a good one there.
You've never heard that?
No.
So
if I have, maybe I've heard of it as something else.
Somebody in the chat will know the exact term for it. But so in My wife and I are watching The Last of Us, and in one of the scenes, the guy goes in there, Joel goes in there, and he points to the map. He goes to him, point to the base on here, to the husband, point to where the base is on this map, and it better be the same place that your wife pointed to an hour ago. You know, like that kind of thing. It's
Gotcha.
prisoner's
Okay,
dilemma.
well,
I don't know why I couldn't think of that word.
So
It's a prisoner's dilemma.
Okay, so because there's some tactics that we use, I've never heard it called that, but yes, like for instance, you know, well, real quick, because it's the true story and it's utilized all the time. You know, my buddy's not gonna rat. He ain't talking to you guys. He ain't doing this.
And then they do.
And well, here's what you do, because the truth is neither of them are ratting on each other. So what you go is you have a partner come in saying, hey, one of these guys needs to get transported for, you know, being an assistant, and you name some like crazy crime, and you say this guy came in with that one. He's like, and then that's when you have the two cops arguing that you're like, no, this guy came in with his best friend, who's the other guy. He's like, no, he came in with this guy. And then what you do is you say, dude, I'm gonna take you over there. Point to the guy that's your best friend. And so you take him to a room of a guy that's, you know, probably another cop in there you sees, and he's just like, no. And then you take him to the room that has his buddy, and he's like him. So buddy's in there seeing his buddy going him, and he's thanks, close the door real quick. And then that's when you tell the guy, well, it looks like we don't need to get your statement. It looks like he's giving us everything we need. And 99% of the time they're like, no, bro, let me tell you what really happened.
That's what's going to happen in this administration, bro.
And I don't mind sharing that on here, because criminals are not going to watch this kind of show.
Well, there are too many people in this that you know are going to suffer the fallout from that administration, that want to preserve themselves. They want to be the hero, whether it's going to be with the independents, the Republicans, or the Democrats. They're going, and not only that, to save their own skin. You're going to see. I mean, look at what the law firms did that were waging lawfare against President Trump for the last 5 years, and then President Trump gets in office and he's like, "We're going to take away your clearances. We're going to do all this stuff," and they bend the knee right away, and they're like, "We're going to give you pro bono legal services. We're going to do all this. We're going to do just please don't destroy us." And that's what's going to happen to a lot of these people. They're going to give up whatever they got to give up in order to preserve their own selves.
Better to be a witness than a suspect.
Absolutely. Always. Okay. So before we move on here, and we're going to kind of go pretty quick through these next, we got some good overseas stories coming up here in a second, but real quick, another sponsor here, guys. If you're looking for a great place online for news, discussion, and entertainment, then check out Truth Social. We all know Truth Social, right? Donald Trump's social media website. You'll get breaking news stories and commentary from top media figures. If you want to see Trump's legendary Truth Social post, then get over there on Truth Social today. Join a growing community of patriots on a free speech platform designed to avoid censorship and cancellation by big tech. Make your voice heard and join the movement. Join Truth Social. And of course, follow at CannCon Actual and at Alpha Warrior over on Truth Social. And thank you, Truth Social, for that there. Let's go ahead and jump into this story right here. From Fox News, ICE storms cartel-run nightclub, arrests 72 migrants, including a murder suspect. This is a repeat. Remember when we saw this in Colorado like a month ago? Same thing. The Alamo. That's what they called it, the Alamo, really. An underground nightclub in Somerville was packed at around 3 a.m. when Immigration and Customs Enforcement stormed the building, recovering firearms, bulk cash, 7 potential trafficking victims, and a missing juvenile. Teens as young as 13 were found drinking inside the club. The club's owner, Benjamin Reina Flores, is a suspected member of the Los Zetas cartel. He now faces both state and federal charges. Part of a months-long investigation, officials said it was a hotbed for narcotics, weapons, and human trafficking, codenamed the Operation Last Stand. I love it. I mean, if you're going to name it Alamo, why not troll them right back, right?
Listen, man, this is what I voted for.
Absolutely, this is what I voted for.
I want more of this, man.
One of the most high-profile arrests was that of Sergio Joel Gallo Baca, a Honduran illegal alien and foreign fugitive with an active Interpol red notice for homicide in Honduras. And I think that's, it says agents entered the nightclub with 116 arrest warrants, both criminal and immigration related. They were only, however, able to serve 80 of those warrants. Among those arrested were 2 high-level cartel members, a number Ritchie expects to grow. Again, that's another prisoner's dilemma. Separate all those people and be like, who's who?
And here's the great thing about this stuff, man. You know, we're hearing that, you know, they're immigration related. Obviously, there's some cartel ones that are in there, you know, but you have tier 1 threats that are being picked up in these processes. Absolutely. Because that's why they're monitoring them to begin with.
Yep.
And here's what I can almost guarantee with certainty. If they knew that these establishments are the ones where some of these high profile guys are hanging out with, A, that means they got street rats. They have an informant. B, they taken this establishment down because they've already exhausted surveilling where all these guys go when they're not at this establishment. It means they've been watching them for a few weeks, and they know what clubs they're going to, what brothels they're going to, what ranches they're going to. So that'll lead to further investigation. So I'm all about this, man. This is solid work, and it's only an indication of other solid work that's going to be coming.
Heck yeah. We got this story from Politico. Judge rules Trump deportations to El Salvador under illegal Alien Enemies Acts were illegal. It's Boasberg again, the dumb judge in DC. He's basically said 140 of these people that you sent over to there, you illegally did that, stopping short of saying you need to work on trying to get them back. It's just another continuation of judges trying to exert their own foreign policy, and an absolute, shit show. I do want to cover this story just because go ahead. You want to add something?
Cut their funding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing is now they're using the excuse. So the Supreme Court ruled, recently, like a month ago or whatever, that these cases need to be brought in the jurisdiction where the defendants and the plaintiffs, where the injury is occurring. So in Texas. But now they're saying because these people are no longer residents of Texas and they're at a camp in El Salvador, they can bring the case anywhere because there's no longer any jurisdiction in Texas. And so that's why this was brought again in DC and got a favorable judge once again. So it's absurd. But
if they're trying to use the concept of jurisdiction when that happened, then that's a long conversation. I'll save it because I need to dive deeper into it too. So
okay. You're going to love this story here. CBS News, a U.S. senator's husband landed on a travel watch list. A phone call had him removed. Shortly after, New Hampshire Democrat Jean Shaheen spoke with the TSA about her husband, William Shaheen. Officials removed him from a list of people subjected to additional security under TSA's Quiet Skies domestic surveillance program. Shaheen is a Lebanese-American attorney active in the Arab-American community. He was placed on a different list, which excluded him from any future advanced screenings, including random checks at TSA checkpoints. Jump down here, and basically this guy in 2023 was pulled aside for 2 extra screenings on a flight. The security agency said that they randomly select travelers, which they said the same thing to you, Now, 3 months after that, Shaheen was flagged because his travel companion on 2 flight reservations was a person listed by the FBI as a, quote, known or suspected terrorist. A federal air marshal was sent to covertly travel near them on a flight in October 18th of 2023. Shaheen said that her husband was added to the secure flight exclusion list, a VIP list that exempts a traveler from security agencies' vetting and surveillance programs, including random screenings. Now, here's the thing that concerns me about this. First, we can talk about, you being put on that list as a J6er that wasn't even in DC on January 6th. But here's the concerning thing. This guy was traveling with two people or traveling with, was it 2 people?
I think so, at least one.
One person on 2 flights was on the FBI's known or suspected terror list. Now, this was during the Biden administration. This was not. So who was he traveling with? And they don't reveal that.
And that's the only place that I would say we got to kind of exercise caution too. And the reason being is he could have been flying with the J6er.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I said that.
And this is the issue with them mudding up the credibility of that list.
Right. I agree.
Because, by including people, because of their political positions or political activism, on that, domestic, possible terrorist list, anti-government list, by putting people on there. Now, when we read stories like this, we have to be like, well, now, was this dude with like a legitimate threat to our country that the FBI was tracking? Or was this dude with, a J6er or some parent that spoke up at a meeting? And the thing is now we don't fucking know because of what they did to that list.
Yes. Now, I am going to look at context, though. Okay. Lebanese American.
I agree.
Big in the Arab American community. His wife's a Democrat senator. Here's what I think it is, and more so than like the odds of him traveling with a J6 are slim to none. It could be,
and I agree. I agree completely. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting on the scenario that you're presenting. I'm just saying this is the predicament, though.
I would lean more towards was this guy an operative in some way that they were traveling with, and now that he can't be checked anymore, the Shaheen guy. Does that give him the ability to move other people wherever they need to go? And that's the concern for me on this. So yeah. I'm with you 100% because what they did to the J6ers with the Quad S and everything else was absolutely freaking ridiculous. But at the same time, I mean, if they're willing to go as far as putting you on a known or suspected terrorist list, I don't know. There has to be some. What a shitty situation. But the fact that the senator can just make a phone call and national security goes out the window because she says, it's my husband, you better watch. Okay. Because that's never happened before where somebody gets infiltrated. Hashtag Eric Swalwell. But
what they need to do now is one of two things or both. Is A, they have to go through and they have to re-vet every single person that's on that TSA list. Every single one. And everybody that was on there because of some political reason that doesn't meet the matrix of the intention of that list, those people need to be removed. And then I would go beyond that and say that you have to have one that's for domestic and one that's for foreign to separate those lists as well. So this way, you have one where you're, if there's Americans that are suspected, kind of like in your scenario, this guy was hanging out with someone who's an operative or an asset or something like that. This would cue off on that. And then another one for foreigners, which is maybe the matrix isn't as high to get on that list. Like you got to have a high threshold if it's Americans, like very strict, but one that, okay, for foreigners, you can get on that list a lot easier than if you're probably an American citizen. You track what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And have those. And then after that, anybody that's removed off that list should not immediately go into a VIP list like they did with this guy for the exact scenario that you're talking about. Just treat us normal.
Yeah. Well, the other issue that I have is, I mean, if you trust your screenings and everything else, then I don't see the point, period. Like,
well, I mean, if we really want to get into it, we don't even need a TSA.
I agree. I think TSA is a wild constitutional violation of the Fourth Amendment. Absolutely.
No, you listen, you have a few cops. I would rather, put more explosive dogs there and do better training with the cargo people. And then we're good. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into this truth from President Trump yesterday. I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. Call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attacks on the airfields. We also discussed Iran and the fact that time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and on this, I believe that we were in agreement. President Putin suggested that he will participate in the in the discussions. I don't know where uranium, I think I mixed agreement with Iran, and that he could perhaps be helpful in getting this brought to a rapid conclusion. It is my opinion that Iran has been slow walking their decision on this very important matter, and we will need a definitive answer in a very short period of time. So the uranium thing's interesting. I think that was in my mind, and that's why I blurted that out. So he says that they can't have a nuclear weapon, but he doesn't say they can't enrich uranium. But he has previously said that, to be fair. He has previously said they can't even enrich uranium. But I still think that the part of the deal, the concession from President Trump to get this deal across is going to be allowing, and I think yesterday, Tuesday with Gordon, we talked about regional enricher of uranium, regional monitoring of that. So meaning the Saudis, some of the other UAE monitoring Iran on that regard. But the big thing from that was the Russia-Ukraine thing. Yesterday we talked about Pompeo now being over there as well. So you had Graham, Blumenthal, Pompeo, all three of them over there last weekend and late last week. And all of a sudden you get this emboldened, brazen attack from Ukraine deep inside Russian territory. Lindsey Graham was on I guess it was like a press conference or a show. I'm not sure, but he said, quote, "The American withdrawal from Afghanistan was a terrible decision. It triggered the Russian invasion of Ukraine." Bullshit. "It made America look weak in the eyes of the world. I told President Trump this privately, and now I'm telling him publicly. If this war ends as if we abandoned Ukraine, it will be even worse than leaving Afghanistan, and it will be a serious blow to global stability." That son of a bitch. It will be worse than leaving Afghanistan. Do you know Afghanistan was Americans that got killed over there? Americans doing their duty. I'm not talking about the Americans that go over to Ukraine because they're absolute retards that want to go over there and fight as a mercenary in a war that has nothing to do with us. If they want to go over there and do that, so be it. But what took place in Afghanistan was a facade that was, pushed on people like you and me to go over to you, Iraq, me, Afghanistan, fight a war that we had no business fighting in the first place. And now Lindsey Graham is trying to continue this Ukraine war. There's no question in my mind at this point after that statement that Lindsey Graham at the very least emboldened Zelensky to do this attack. And I'll let you comment on that, but I do have a clip here from General Kellogg that I want to play.
Or you want to play it first? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's play it first.
And I'm telling you, the risk levels are going way up. I mean, what happened this weekend, people have to understand in the national security space, when you attack an opponent's part of their national survival system, which is their triad, the nuclear triad, that means your risk level goes up because you don't know what the other side's going to do. You're not sure. And that's what they actually did. And the one that really concerned me was the fact that there have been reports that they attacked the northern fleet headquarters in Severomorsk. And if that's the case, if when you attack two legs of a triad, that first of all is a very bold attack. And when you do that, it's very clear the risk levels will go up. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to get to a position where the risk levels are going so high that this thing will expand, and actually where we don't want to be.
So you're referencing the drone attack over the weekend against several air bases that the Russians have, and a lot of Bear bombers, which are the air component of their nuclear triad, were taken out. I mean, it was like shooting fish in a barrel for the Ukrainians with their drones. Here's what the AP said about that. While some Russian military bloggers compared it to another infamous Sunday surprise attack, that of Japan's strike on the U.S. base at Pearl Harbor in 1941, others rejected that analogy, arguing the actual damage was far less significant than Ukraine claimed. But it did show that Ukraine was capable of hitting Russian targets deep in their own territory.
Yeah, John, each age has its own style of warfare, and we're seeing now drone warfare, and we're going to have to adapt to that and look at that.
All right, we can stop there. He's going to go off and talk about the planes and everything else, but the last part is very important, that we're in a new style of warfare, and we're going to have to adapt to that. But when he cut in, I can't, what's his name, Bill, whatever anyways. When he cut in, though, and said that the attack wasn't as serious as Ukraine is making it out to be, Ukraine clearly did that attack knowing that they're going to be forced and compelled to go to the negotiation table, and they got to have something to stand on. They have to be able to say, we're not just a feckless nation on your border. We actually can push back and buck against the system, and we can instill some pain to you. And I don't think that's the case, to be honest with you. But did Lindsey Graham, Blumenthal, Pompeo, did they go over there specifically to try and bolster Zelensky's position at the table? And by them going over there, that they gave him intestinal fortitude to carry out an attack like that, knowing that, you know, perhaps the U.S. would back them up. I don't know, but this sounds like it's subverting President Trump's foreign policy.
It's absolutely subverting President Trump, and it absolutely is with the intent to start World War III. The hands down. Now, none of those three guys are stupid. They may be retarded, but they're not stupid. And they all knew at a minimum the optics of what it was going to look like going over there with that kind of attack following, because we know that the cat's out of the bag. This attack was not something that they were not aware of. They may be going over there on the public optics of this private stuff that we're involved with, but we know the true intentions were, it absolutely has to do with this attack, and it absolutely was to put Trump in a position that I've kind of been talking about, Brian, is there's two ways to get Trump out. You know, the way they did to JFK, which they've already tried twice, or to impeach him. And you see them setting up the language already right here that, oh, look at, you know, the withdrawal from Afghanistan with Biden, which I agree with you. You can't compare Americans to wannabe Azov Nazis. Like, get out of here. It's retarded. But they're going to sell Ukraine as this ally that's getting obliterated by Russia, and we're not doing nothing about it. And they're going to try to use that in a way to get, and here's the other thing. Well, I won't go too far off on a tangent. It's a whole nother conversation, but they'll use that as a talking point when it comes to future impeachments. There's a little bit more to it that they need, because you would need bipartisan support on that, and requires a little bit more. But it's definitely setting the foundation for that. The other thing too is when Trump makes the comment on that conversation between him and Putin, and, you know, Putin says he's going to have to retaliate, you know, that's not Trump endorsing it. And that's not Trump saying, hey, I told him to go do this, which is, you know, what a lot of alt media and you know, MAGA pretenders are trying to sell on social media. Trump's just saying, hey, I recognize that this is what he's going to do, and there's nothing I can do to stop him, because we would respond the same way.
I agree. I don't know.
Listen, if Ukraine goes to the negotiating table with what's the name saying, oh, we can do more, Putin's going to say the only reason you're allowed to do that is because I haven't wiped you off the map to begin with.
Exactly. And but why though?
Why hasn't he wiped them off the map, or why?
Yeah.
Well, one, there's a lot of Russians, you know, Russian culture there that he's trying to preserve. There's resources there that need to be preserved. Ukraine can be important to not only what it provides, but also for the logistics of its location. And so I don't see him wanting to destroy it. I just see him wanting to, you know, push NATO back into a position where they haven't encroached on him so much, because they got, all the weapon systems that are put on the east border of Ukraine, you know, north and the northeast border of Ukraine against Russia. We violated so many promises with them.
When I said obliterate, I didn't mean like literally like nuke them or something like that. But I didn't mean that. I realized the, you know, agricultural and you know, commercial value of Ukraine, but I just don't understand why this war is continuing to go on the way it is. But I do think that, you know, whenever Trump and Putin say it's over, it's over. Period.
I think you're the one that might have had this conversation with me, or it could have been Josh. One of you guys is you're going to see something come to the brink of something extremely dangerous.
Yep.
And Trump's going to be the one that mitigates and stops it, and he's going to turn it into his advantage, not theirs.
Yeah, and that's what I think. That's where I think this escalation will go to.
And of course, we got to get a blue and a yellow rumble rant after this conversation. Are you serious? Are you serious, audience?
Wow. Well, it's in the right order too. Wow. Okay. Darlap72 says, Badlands, have you seen this 7/4/25 event? New 9/11 attack on USA. Dr. David Martin interview, and then a rumble link. All right, Darlap, thank you for that. I'll check that out. Patrick J17, two of my favorite hosts. God bless you, gentlemen. Thank you for the information, and thank you for the rant. And then NJ Corney, I'm not reading that. Alberta Independence, I'll give you that much, but I'm not reading that. It was a freaking nail biter of a game last night. We lost in overtime. I predicted the overtime. You don't want to read the part that says "Go Oilers." All right, so I'm finishing out the show here by myself. You are un-American as fuck, bro. If you're rooting for the Canadian team, I'm not rooting for the Canadian team. All right, man. This hard stop thing really sucks because I really wanted to play the David Portnoy Meltdown. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Oh my!
A new one, or are we talking about the old one with the
one from yesterday?
Okay,
With
no,
his
I haven't
mini
seen
hang.
that
You know what? Let's play it. Screw it. We'll play a minute or two of it.
I think right now you probably
Okay, nothing then.
do it.
Nothing. Silence everything.
What do you?
Every comedian, don't tell a joke about it. Because
Kirk,
somebody, like Dave,
Kirk,
that's how the world works. I agree with you.
Go back to your question. When does freedom of speech impinge
That was your
on freedom
question,
of
not
religion?
mine. That was your question.
Never.
Answer it.
How many deaths?
Yeah.
These people are so unqualified to be talking about anything along. When does freedom of speech impinge on your freedom of religion? Never. They're both First Amendment rights. They have nothing to do with one another. They're completely separate. But this is why you have a guy with an Oilers hat, gay, although he keeps his mouth shut the whole time, so I won't say anything. And then you have three sports guys talking, but they have no understanding whatsoever what the First Amendment was. But dude, this is bad. Watch.
I don't have an answer.
Like how in America, American
what's your
citizens.
answer? What's your answer to that question?
Now.
Okay, we're there.
Now.
So now what? So now what do we do?
So maybe you stop with the fucking Jew jokes and act like it's not a big deal when someone does fuck the Jews in a bar.
Or no, but here's the thing. I'm with you 1,000% on that. You should have fucking kicked those people out. Of course you should.
I'm not talking about kicking them out. I'm talking about.
You want to go to jail? Like, what do you want? Like, those guys.
You are defending this guy Mick for what he said right after that happened. He's not anti-Semitic.
I'm not defending him. No,
if your brain goes there,
I'm not defending him, Dave. What I'm saying is, you should have him on here or somebody else like that and fucking fight with them, because then you have a conversation.
That's what this idiot wants.
Dave, these guys that wrote the thing at the bar, fuck the Jews, right?
Yes.
You're gonna fucking fly them to Auschwitz. Some guy tweets at you something. You want to fucking? He's not.
Kirk,
you can't come on
it was
for
a bar
5
I
minutes.
owned. It was a bar I owned.
They should have been kicked out. So, but my thing is,
no,
like,
it's not just kick out, Kirk. Are you ignoring what's going on in the world?
No,
right
I'm
now?
not. What, Dave? What do you want to do with those guys? What do you want to do?
It's
What do you want to
related?
do with those guys at the bar? Put them in jail for 50 years?
Kirk,
Fine. I don't
I
care.
didn't
They're
say that.
assholes.
You're quite literally changing everything you say, Kirk. If you just want me to kick him out, not mention it, not care that this kid
Not at
is
all.
anti-Semitic,
Not at all.
shut
Not at all.
up. If you just want me to ignore it,
Don't tell me to shut up. Don't tell me.
shut the fuck up, you bald fuck.
Okay, go ahead.
How's that?
Oh, it's kill. I'll never recover from that, Dave. Go ahead, continue. I'll never recover.
Well, you're the one who big boss man, don't tell. I'll tell you work for me.
Okay, go ahead,
You
continue.
little bitch. You work for me.
Sure, you bet. For now,
Oh, you
continue.
don't? For now, quit. I don't
Well,
care. I'll save 500 grand.
is this show or not a show? Like, is a show or not a show? Like, we can't have a conversation?
You're an idiot.
Okay, continue.
You're literally saying people should be allowed to make Jew jokes, say whatever they want right
Yes.
fucking now. That's
Yes,
what
I
you're
think people
saying.
should be allowed to make jokes.
So how many motherfucking Jews have to be
jokes.
killed before you stop?
That everybody, I don't think.
What else? Where else is that happening with the religion or people?
I don't think those psychopaths. I'm with you. They're scumbags. They're the worst people on the earth. Should that?
You don't think it's all related?
But Dave, you're telling.
We could stop it right there, bro.
unless you are trying to facilitate a threat, a realistic threat, then no, freedom of speech.
Dude, by the way, let me just play this real quick.
That you got to send me that clip, bro. That is.
Oh, dude, it's going viral right now. Check this out. This was Portnoy not too long ago.
You posted the following on your site. I never condone rape, but if you're a size 6 and you're wearing skinny jeans, you kind of deserve to be raped.
Correct. I stand by that. I think it's a funny joke.
You think rape is funny?
No, I didn't say that. I think it's a funny joke.
Do you understand how offensive that is?
No, I obviously don't.
You post.
Now, I don't know if that's fake or real. It was posted in response. Mel posted that on X. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. David Portnoy is a fucking retard for that debate right there. Like, you are not in the. Stop telling jokes because Jews are dying. Okay, so is that really the standard now for the First Amendment?
Here's my position on that. You can even say it even as not a joke. You can say it and wholeheartedly believe it until you cross the threshold of trying to facilitate a crime, or a threat. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech. You want to boot those people out of your bar. You want to put on blast and make your comments all over social media. Go ahead, because you're entitled to the same First Amendment.
Yeah, they even go as far. the Minihane, whatever his name is, first and foremost, the moment that it crosses the threshold where you say, shut up, you dumb bald fuck, and you're my little bitch and all that stuff, I would be on the first flight over there. I'd whoop the shit out of that guy. To call me a bitch on air with a bunch of other people when you're supposed to be my friend, my boy, whatever. But anyways, the bottom line is that other guy was right. Yeah, you might not like the speech. If it's your bar, kick him out. You don't have any constitutional right obligations to keep that man in your establishment. But to sit there and say, well, that's not enough. Well, what else is there? You kicked him out. You know, people in the public sphere, you know, if they want to make fun of them, whatever they want to do, fine. The government can't come in and they say, you made a Jew joke, you're going to prison. That's fucking insane that anybody would propose that at all. So
I'm there. Bro, like it's just, until you cross the threshold of using, you know, media in any capacity to, you know, support, facilitate, you know, terrorist organizations, to facilitate threats. Until you cross those thresholds, freedom of speech is freedom of speech.
Amen. And I'll tell you right now, dumbasses like David Portnoy going on that rant right there are what's really killing the anti-Semitism, as they like to call every single thing. If you say the word Jew, it's anti-Semitism. But that's what's killing anti-Semitism. Like, that's what's making it so popular and mainstream, is because idiots like that want to take away our rights because we might infringe on some of the Jewish people. It's absurd, man. But yeah, go ahead. Last comment, and then we got to get out of here.
You know, listen, if people want to go on social media and be racist, they can go. The consequence is how the community responds to them. There's the consequence.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Tune in tonight on SitRep. We will have Nick No on talking about Extortion 17 in Benghazi. He's one of the guys that's been exposing that for a long time. So he'll be joining us tonight on SitRep, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be there. And Alpha, I'll see you tonight. Hopefully you're not late. You're not going to live this down.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.